There we go again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live stream here on the Aviation Pro channel. This is just the second live stream, official live stream that I'm doing actually for the channel. And of course, you can join the chat at my new website, aviationpro.nl/live. And on this page, you can find a chat box at the bottom. You can find the video stream that you're watching now already. But there's a chat box there as well, and in there you can ask questions about the channel, about aviation, Vatsim, anything you actually want to know. So please go there and join the chat. It's very simple. So it's aviationpro.nl/live, and right there you can also set a name. So by default you're an anonymous person, but if you set a name, you can also I know who you are. It's very simple. You don't need to create an account. You can if you want to. You can add your picture and things like that, but that's of course not really necessary. You can just set your name there and then yeah, join the chat, of course. I'll turn myself off. We're live, so that's working. That's all working good. All I got to do now is share the event on Facebook and on Twitter. There we go. And I'll just wait for more people to come into the chat room. Currently there are 2 people, and that's actually myself 2 times. One on my computer and one on my iPad, just to see if everything's working. And apparently everything is working. The audio is working fine as well. Last time I forgot to select the correct microphone when I started the broadcast, but this time it's working fine right now, and everything is set up correctly. A bit more well prepared this time. Okay, so it's on Facebook, it's on Twitter. As you know, I'm also on Twitter these days. I've been quite silent on Twitter personally as well. I haven't used it for months, really. Of course, I look at it, but I rarely ever post tweets myself anymore on my personal account. And yeah, automatically, I didn't really use Twitter for the Aviation Pro channel anymore. But it seems that there are still people who like Twitter a lot and who are on there a lot, and so I've decided to get my Twitter account active again, and I'm posting a lot of stuff there as well. So you can now not only follow me via Facebook, but you can also follow me via Twitter. And I think you go to twitter.com/aviationpronl. So twitter.com/aviationpronl. And there you can find my Twitter feed. And I think I post a little bit more on the Twitter feed than on the Facebook feed, but I think Facebook is a bit more personal, and I like it better than Twitter. I mean, Twitter is now just I'm following a couple of people and news websites, things like that, and your feed gets overloaded very easily. So yeah, I don't really like it. With Facebook you can limit it a bit better, of course. So there are some more people coming into the chat room. Welcome everybody. See, all anonymous. So please set your name in Chatango so I know who you are, and it's always better to have a name. It's a bit more personal, of course. I'll just type it as well. There we go. I remember last time it was very busy in the chat room. There were at some point there were 25 people. It was really cool. This time I think a little bit less because I was planning this event quite last minute because I was not really sure if I was going to be able to do a live stream tonight, but apparently it was possible for me. So yeah, that's why I kind of decided yesterday evening, okay, I have time to do a live stream. So that's what happened. And so I didn't really have time to really um, get everybody's attention for the live stream. Not yet, but at least there's enough to talk about. Even though there are not a lot of questions coming in, there's a lot to talk about, and specifically today about the website I want to talk about, and about my recent videos that I've released. I've released a couple of videos, including 10 essential tips for Vatsim pilots, and also the review of the Virtual CDU app. And I'll tell you a little bit more about my experiences with the app, things like that. So there we go. Everything is set up now. Everything is being shared. And remember to go to aviationpro.nl/live to join the chat room, and there you can ask your questions. I've disabled the chat in YouTube just to get you to the website, because I want to get more people to the website, and because it's more of a nice place to interact with you, and the YouTube comment system is not as quick as using the chat room on my website. So, okay. So if you have any questions, please post them in that chat room at aviationpro.nl/live. And of course, yeah, let's take a look. We can start with the website itself right now. So I've been working very hard on the website in January. That's when I really set everything up. And it has been great fun to create a website. I've never created a website myself before. Yeah, maybe at school, a very simple offline website. But this is the first time that I'm using, real software, and that I'm really hosting the website on the actual internet. So that's kind of cool to have your own website created. I'm using WordPress, the famous WordPress system, to create my websites. And so far, yeah, I've been very busy just adding stuff. I've used a freeware theme right now that works pretty well for me, and I've been able to add a lot of content, make the website look pretty good so far. But of course, it's a very, very early version. We're now at version 1.01, actually. If you go to my website, aviationpro.nl, you can see at the bottom, you can see some stuff like the Facebook feed. You can also see the recent blog posts. I've created 2 of those already. The search function, and at the very bottom, you can see that the version 1.01, and that's the change log, actually. So you can also click on that if you want to. So this is a very early version of the website, of course, and but I'm planning to do a lot more on the website. This is now just a basic version containing some basic stuff. Let's take a look. There was a question coming in. No, I won't. I won't answer in Dutch. I'm sorry, because it's an international audience, so it doesn't make any sense to answer the questions in Dutch. But you can ask. You can ask them in Dutch if you want to. I mean, that's no problem. And then I can answer them in English and translate it. Okay. So I was talking about the website. So what are my plans? Basically, I've got some exams coming up in 2 weeks, so that has the priority. But after that, I'm hoping to add a lot of content. I mean, I still have to add content to pages like the tutorials. I have a tutorial page for the Boeing 737, the Boeing 767, and the Embraer 135, 145. And those are the aircraft that I personally fly most of the time when I'm flying on the Vatsim network. And so I want to add a lot of tutorial information there to show you how to operate these aircraft, basically. And also, I'm planning to make some videos with that as well. So I won't leave my YouTube channel behind. Definitely not. I hope to add a lot of video content, because that's what the whole Aviation Pro channel is about, of course. And the website is just a place where it all comes together. So there are some more people coming into the chat room. Good evening, everybody. Remember to set your name in Chatango, so I know who you are, and then we can you can ask your questions in the chat room, so I can answer them for you. I've got some other stuff to talk about as well, but it's always nice to answer questions, because now is your chance, and I only have 1 hour. So if you have a question about Vatsim, about aviation, about the channel itself, or about the new website, for example, please post them here, because now is the time that I can answer. So I'm gonna add a lot of content to the website after my exams in 2 weeks. But in the background, I'm also working on a new version already. So I'm working on a subdomain, trying to create an even better website. And when I release that website, I don't know, it will probably take a few months because yeah, it's a lot of work. Of course, everything needs to work perfectly, and yeah, when I release the new version of the website, I want to make sure that it's very good, and I think it will look very good. So far, I've been working and experimenting a little bit with the theme that I'm using, and I'm sure that it will be a lot of fun spending time on the new website. And by then, like for example, early summer, the website will be uh, full of content, and I hope it will be a place for you as flight simulation enthusiasts and Vatsim pilots, the perfect place to learn more about flight simulation, about uh, operating certain aircraft, and also about flying on Vatsim, of course. That's one of the main things of the Aviation Pro channel. So, well, let's take a look. There was a question about FSIN. I'm not sure. Special was to ask a question about FSIN, about the installation process, but I don't have much experience with FSIN. I can really help you with that because I personally still use Squawkbox, and FSIN and Squawkbox are kind of getting old. Um, I actually recommend you to drop FSIN and Squawkbox because there are new pilot clients coming up. Of course, we have vPilot. That's the client that's already up, and I think it's the best thing to use that one right now. Squawkbox is much easier with installing than FSIN, but vPilot, yeah, it's a new client, and I think there are quite a few good functions in there. So you better try out that. I really don't have any experience with FSIN, so I really can't help with that about installation errors. I mean, I don't have that to my availability right now, so I really can't tell what could be wrong with your installation. So choose vPilot or Squawkbox. Squawkbox is very stable. I think the website of Squawkbox is even up still. And there was a time that the website was down, but yeah, the website is still up, squawkbox.ca, and there you can download it as well, of course. But the whole development of Squawkbox has stopped, so for future flight simulators, it's not going to work anymore. Flight simulators like Prepar 3D and things like that. But for me, as an FS2004 user, it's still working. So, go. All right, there we go. We got some more questions coming in. Anonymous 8576. Good night from France. L Lima Foxtrot Alpha Delta. I have to look that one up. That airport. Which one is? Compigne. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but okay, all right. Well, good night to you, sir. Welcome to the chat room. Yeah, I'm sorry I don't speak French very well, so but you can use Google Translate, of course, and then if you just put that question into the chat room, I probably understand it pretty well. Oh, it's Dunkirk Airport. Is that correct? Dunkirk. There we go. Yeah, that's very nice. That's quite close to where I live because there's another question: where are you from? And I'm from the Netherlands, so that's pretty close. Of course, Belgium is in between. It's near the border with Belgium, Dunkirk, and I live in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam. And I also have an airport in Rotterdam, so that's pretty cool. Although I never really go there. I've only been there once, I think. But it's a pretty nice airport. You can take really cheap flights to a lot of European destinations, so that's quite nice. And there's another question coming in. Thanks for the question, guys. Welcome again to the chat box. post your questions here. We have 45 minutes remaining, so now's the time to get your questions in so I can answer them for you. Anonymous4131 asks how to start. I'm new in the FS world. You have FSX Team Edition. Okay. I'm not really familiar with FSX Team Edition, but I hear it's working pretty well, although some add-ons are not really compatible with it. Yeah, when you're new to the FS world, it's really start at the very beginning. Just fly with those default airplanes. Follow the flying lessons in Flight Simulator. They are actually useful if you're completely new to the Flight Simulator world. And once you've kind of mastered that, when you know the basics of flying and navigating with the default airplanes, you can, for example, start thinking about buying an add-on airplane. Those add-on airplanes are very professional. They cost some money, of course. Think about the iFly 737. I think it's at around $50, but it's very worth it because those airplanes are very realistic, and they have put a lot of effort in making those aircraft as realistic as possible. I'm sorry for the background noise, by the way. Some people coming in, but I'm not sure if you can hear that actually, but still. What I was talking about, yeah, when you decide to buy an add-on airplane, choose wisely. You know, there are a lot of good products out there, and then it's time, if you have purchased that airplane, then you can really slowly start to learn how to operate this airplane, because it's very complex and it requires a lot of time and reading of manuals before you can actually master that airplane. And just experiment with it. And once you know that, it's about time to join the Vatsim network, I think. I mean, it's also part of my 10 tips video that I released a couple of days ago. And yeah, those are the kind of tips that are essential for new Vatsim pilots. So I can really recommend you to watch that video as well, because it's really yeah, helpful for new pilots in general, but especially if you want to join Vatsim later on. All right, King Pie Man 99, welcome. No, I don't fly X-Plane 10. However, I do have X-Plane on my iPad. So the X-Plane people, they have released a free app for the iPad, but the only thing you can really do is fly a Cessna in areas like Innsbruck or Hawaii. It's fun. It's not entirely realistic, of course, but it's nice to have a little flight simulator in your go away. It's nice to have a little flight simulator on your iPad. You know, if you're on holiday, you can at least get some feeling of flying in a flight simulator. But I don't use X-Plane 10 on my home PC. I don't have it installed. I never purchased any version of X-Plane. I'm just not really into it. I'm really a Microsoft Flight Simulator person, and when the time is ready, I think I would sooner switch to Prepar 3D than X-Plane. But I do agree that X-Plane looks pretty good actually. But I have a bit more experience with the Microsoft Flight Simulator range of games. Okay, there we go. Some more people coming in. Welcome everybody again to the chat room and to the live stream. There's a question of Anonymous0144 again. What is the best thing with Vatsim? Well, there are a lot of good things about Vatsim actually, but of course the best thing is just the high quality air traffic control that's available. That's just very cool. I mean, you can make a lot of flights from A to B with full coverage ATC, and those people are all trained, and it's just a very, very realistic environment and very comparable to the real world. Because if you listen to live ATC from the real world, it's pretty similar to Vatsim ATC, because all those air traffic controllers really need to get training. They need to take exams before they are actually allowed to start controlling on the Vatsim network. And yeah, so they are really experienced, and that creates very realistic environments, because the pilot's gonna have to adapt to the quality of the air traffic controllers. So that's the best thing about Vatsim. It's just a really realistic environment, and it's very useful if you want to become a pilot later, I think. And even real world pilots still use it themselves in their free time. So I think that kind of says a lot, right? Um, more questions. A tutorial about GSX. That's something like ground. Is that some kind of ground services? I don't use that product. I'm still using FS 2004, so I have no experience with products for FSX. Ground Services X is kind of an alternative to airport enhancement services by Aerosoft, and it works a little bit differently, I think, because if I'm right, you don't need to have add-on airports, things like that. It works at every airport, but I'm not entirely sure. But so I can't really do a tutorial on that because I have no experience with that product. But it looks pretty cool, and I've heard a lot of good stories about it. I personally still use airport enhancement services in FS 2004, of course, which works fine as well. The only drawback of AES is that you have to buy credits all the time that you um, want to get AES working on your favorite add-on airport. So that kind of adds up. So I don't really have all my add-on airports activated, only the airports I regularly fly to. Okay. Patty Evans, good evening. Any plans on getting a CPL? Well, of course, that would be a dream coming true, but I'm first studying. I want to finish studying at the university first before I get any kind of pilot certificates. But I might do some gliding lessons soon because yeah, I think gliding is very useful to get a really experience of flying an aircraft, and it's relatively cheap, of course, because you don't have to pay for the gas that the aircraft uses if you're flying a Cessna or something. And I mean, there are very cool videos of glider flights. I mean, you know, videos in the Alps. Of course, I don't have mountains here in the Netherlands, but yeah, I might do some gliding lessons soon to get my gliding pilot license. Is that a valid license? GPL. Yeah, to get some experience of actually flying an airplane, because of course with Flight Simulator you kind of get a feeling, but it's not the same as in the real world. And I think gliding is a very good basic to start with before you get any other pilot license. And then after that, maybe PPL, CPL, and maybe I'm gonna go into flight training after my studies. I really don't know, but at least a glider pilot license and maybe at least a PPL. That would really be my goal, because of course I want to try to get some experience in flying. And I mean, with the PPL, of course, you're just flying small airplanes, but at least it's something, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, tutorial about how to put planes in FSX. Well, that's really something basic that you can look up on Google. It's very simple, actually. I think it works the same as an FSX, but I can't really promise anything about making future videos. And also a question about Airbus versus Boeing. I'm a Boeing man. We can make a large discussion about that, of course, but I don't really want to get into that. But I just like the philosophy of Boeing better. So that automation is not the main thing controlling the aircraft. In the end, in the Boeing, the pilot is controlling the aircraft, and that's what I like better. And I just like the look of the cockpits of the Boeing much better than the Airbus airplanes. But that's just personal preference, really. And it's kind of depends on what kind of philosophy you support. Of course, there are many debates about that. And every time a Boeing crashes, the Airbus people say, "Hey, yeah, see, that's a malfunction of Boeing." But every time an Airbus crashes in the real world, you know, they say, "Yeah, that's a malfunction of Airbus." You know, so they both have their advantages and disadvantages. And but yeah, I'm more of a supporter of the Boeing philosophy in the end. So that in the end, the pilot is in control of the aircraft, and that he can always turn off the automation. So, and I like the looks of the Boeing better, both inside and outside, actually. I'm getting a bit sore here already from talking so much. Of course, I'm not really used to talking that much, on and on. Um, let's take a look. Fly Sam, good evening. I think you were there in the previous live stream as well, right? What's your favorite route? That's a good question. I usually fly, I think, Bratislava to Prague. That's one of my favorite routes. Um, it's a very nice and short flight and good ATC quality as well. But other routes I like is Amsterdam to Vienna. I've flown that route many times, and yeah, kind of from Amsterdam to Central Europe. Those are kind of my favorite routes. And also flying to Germany is always a pleasure because the ATC is always very good there. And you either landing or cruising to Germany is always fun. You might notice that from my flight from Zurich to Copenhagen. They were always yeah, very polite, and it's good to fly through German airspace in Vatsim. Okay, all right, Patty. Yeah, 60 to 70% of air traffic controllers have a glider pilot license, and around 5 to 10% of them have a BPL. Oh, that's quite interesting. That's quite good, actually. I think it's important for air traffic controllers to actually experience flying. I believe even that, for example, air traffic controllers in the Netherlands actually are allowed to go on a couple of flights in the cockpit to see how it all works in the cockpit. So that's pretty cool. But if you have a license yourself, that's even better, of course. And so that's quite an interesting statistic. And it's always nice to have some kind of pilot license, of course. Even I mean, if you're an aircraft controller, I think if you see all those aircraft coming by, I think at some point you really say, I want to do that as well, right? So it's good that they have a license. All right, Ace Triple 11. Good evening. He says hello from Vermont. All right, that's very good. Good to see you. Morgie Bears. Good evening, sir. How are you tonight? I'm doing good. I hope you guys are doing good as well. And I'm kind of busy, but I managed to get this live stream in on time, and I don't really have time to make an actual video, but doing a live stream is actually much easier because all I really have to do is talk for an hour, right? And to answer all your questions. So if you have questions, please post them in the chat room at aviationpro.nl/live. So if you're not there yet, you can join that chat room because the chat function of YouTube is disabled. Because I want, of course, to get some people to my website because it's new, and yeah, just to try it out. And the chat function of in the chat room right here on my website is a bit better than the chat function on YouTube. And you don't need an account for it as well. So you can just go to the page and log in, set the name if you want to, which I recommend. And then you can just chat. So that's very easy. All right, another question coming in. Food and fly. Any airport scenery to recommend? And also, are you flying with freeware aircraft? Well, there are, of course, very good sceneries around. Basically, I really like Fly Tampa and Taxi to Gate sceneries. For example, Vienna of Fly Tampa is very good. Of Taxi to Gate, I have Bratislava scenery of them. It's a very good scenery with volumetric grass and things like that. So it's really cool to fly to those airports, and the frame rates of those add-ons are quite good as well. So Fly Tampa and Taxi to Gate are kind of my favorite developers. There's not really one airport that I can really recommend. Of course, that's your own personal preference. It depends on which airport you fly to most. But of course, there are a lot of developers out there. But I think Flight Tampa and Taxi to Gate are one of the best ones for FS2004. Of course, for FSX, there are even more developers because you have Orbex. I mean, those sceneries look amazing. I've never tried any of those sceneries. So, but from what I've seen, the people walking on the ground, very very detailed scenery, very high quality textures, things like that. It looks amazing. So I think for FSX it's more like the Orbex products, but for FS 2004 and when looking at airports only, I would definitely recommend Flight Tempo or Taxi to Gate. All right, let's take a look. Ace Triple 11. He recently experienced a strange loss of control while flying cross country on Vatsim, and he requested emergency landing and was booted. Did this ever happen? I ended up crashing. Oh, that's very bad. I don't know what happened. What could have happened? It kind of depends on what kind of add-on you're using, of course. So I'm not sure which aircraft you were flying at the moment. But I've never really experienced something like that. Complete loss of control. That's something that's very rarely happens unless you'll have some kind of faulty installation. So yeah, there must be something wrong with your add-on aircraft right here. Okay, but yeah, in that case, you have to ask for an emergency. Of course, you have to declare an emergency. So, yeah, I mean, at that point, you can't really do anything about it anymore. So, but ending up crashing is quite bad, actually, right? Okay. All right, Patty Evans. They do it in Croatia. Okay, great. Yeah. So the air traffic control actually often flies together with the pilots to, get an experience of each other's work environments, which is very good. All right, good. It's good that there are a lot of questions coming in. I've got a half an hour left, so make sure you post your questions on time in the chat box at aviationpro.nl/live. Let's go ahead and to the next question. Aders asks, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm studying still, and basically, my YouTube channel is my work. Kind of, that's what I'm spending most of my time on, next to studying and next to partying and things like that. But yeah, so studying is my main thing that I do right now, and that's the primary focus, of course. And let's take a look. Then we have Ik ben Kubi. That's a Dutch name, right? I can see that. Hi, I'm new to Vatsim and on time. That's good. If you have any question, very question that really needs to be answered, you can ask, of course, here in the chat room. And of course, if you're new to Vatsim, I can really recommend you to watch my new video, the 10 essential tips for new Vatsim pilots, because those tips really help you to get going on the Vatsim network. So I've created a list of 10 tips, and I think they're very useful. They're very useful tips in there. Okay, Thomas Farr, good evening to you. Do you think that the L1011 from Just Flight is any good, and will you be getting the Hawker when it's released from Coronado? I actually do have the L1011 of Just Flight for FSX. I needed that aircraft sometime when I was creating a video, and it's pretty good actually. I've not flown that much in it, only for creating videos, but for the simulation of an old airliner like that, it's pretty good. But it's been a long time ago since I've flown in that aircraft, and it's not really an aircraft that I would fly myself very often. But I needed that aircraft for making a video. But it's a pretty good add-on, and I think they did a good job on recreating an airliner that's pretty old already, and I'm not sure how they would have access to resources on that one, for example, but it's a pretty good add-on. Very nice cockpit as well, and but I'm not really sure about all the systems. I really have to get into that, but yeah, that's of course up to you. The Nick asks, gonna this live night session? What? I'm not sure what you mean with that question. That's not. You have to reformulate the question, otherwise I don't understand what you're saying. All right, and then Iban Kubi, I'm new to Vatsim, and one time a controller directed me to a frequency. When I go to that frequency, there was nothing, so I go back to the previous frequency, and then also nobody responds. What do I need to do? That's kind of weird. Maybe he sent you to Unicom. Unicom is a frequency where, which is 1 to 2 decimal 8. And this is a frequency where there's no air traffic control, but on that frequency you can communicate to other pilots via text. So not via voice, but via text only. So it could be that he redirected you there, and then when he redirected you there, he logged off. And then when you got back to his frequency, there was nothing anymore. So that could have happened. But in general, it's good to, if you've been directed to a frequency, if the previous air traffic controller gives you a new frequency and you go there and there's no response, it could be that the air traffic controller is sleeping or there's some kind of technical difficulty. I mean, these things do happen on Vatsim. In that case, it's a good idea to go back to your previous frequency. So always leave that into the standby box, so you can easily switch back or just remember it. And then report to the previous air traffic controller that you were not able to get in touch with the new air traffic controller. And then you can take action, get in contact, and see what works out. But I'm not sure what would have happened in your case, because yeah, of course, a lot of things could happen. But it could be that the Unicom, he sends you to Unicom, and that's only a place for communicating with other pilots, and you should do that to do position reports. For example, if you are flying a star, you have to say, I'm going to fly this star into this airport. And for example, when you're on final for an approach on a runway, you always also say, I'm on final runway 12, and then the pilots on the ground know that they shouldn't take off. Okay, so that's what Unicom is used for, and unfortunately there's no voice Unicom available on Vatsim. Okay, Thomas, oh yeah, are you getting the Hawker for Coronado? I'm not sure. I think it's an FSX add-on, right? I haven't really read about it add-on. I'm just gonna look it up. Hawker. It's an incoming project. It looks pretty good, actually. It's a nice business jet. I think it's good that there are some business jets being developed for the flight simulator market, because I think it kind of lacks on the FS market nowadays. So I'm now on the Carolina website. I'm looking at some pictures and it looks pretty good. So yeah, I'm not really a business jet flyer or anything. I'm not an FSX user either, but judging from the images, it looks very good. And so I'm not sure if I would get it personally, but it's definitely worth a try if you really like to fly business jets. It looks like a pretty good add-on. And in general, Coronado aircraft are very, very good. I mean, I've quite a few of their general aviation aircraft for Flight Simulator 2004, and they feel very realistic and behave very realistic. So that's what I really like. Okay, there we go. Patty Evans, one time thing. Fly the 747-8 or the SR-71, and it's the Blackbird, right? What would you choose? That's a good one. Well, considering the fact that if I would be able to become a pilot, I would actually still be able to fly a 747 in the real world. So then I would go for the SR-71 Blackbird, but that airplane is not flying anymore. But if I really had to choose, if I had just one time thing in my life, I think I would still go for the 747, because it's just such a classic aircraft. And I mean, the SR-71 Blackbird, of course, it's a great aircraft, and I mean, it has a massive amount of speed, but I think I like the beauty of the 747 better, and just fly a couple of approaches with that thing instead, because yeah, it's a classic airplane, of course. And I mean, KLM flies the 747 a lot, so I kind of have a personal affection with that. I really like the look of the 747s. So I think I would go for the 747. And by the way, KLM has repainted one of their 747s in their new paint scheme. You might know that KLM is converting their aircraft to a new paint scheme where they have this like dolphin look. The blue line goes a little bit down at the nose. and it looks pretty good. They have done it to the Embraer and the 737, and now also to one of their 747. So that's pretty cool, and you should really check it out. Look for the new livery of KLM. All right, then Nick, how do you think about a meeting for the Dutch people around? That well, I've actually been considering that sometime, maybe in summer, for example, to have an AviationPro meeting, maybe at Schiphol, for example. I mean, it would be pretty nice to get some of my diehard fans, meet some of my diehard fans over there. We could actually arrange that. I've been thinking about it before, and it just depends on how many people will come. So when I do that, of course, I will let you know, and of course, other people are welcome to join in as well. So I think Amsterdam Schiphol Airport would be a perfect place, so we could do some spotting, for example, because I go spotting at Amsterdam once per year anyway, so it's a good idea. We can think about that, and when it's time, then yeah, then I will let you know, of course. Okay. Totoritko asks a question. It's very long questions. Do you think Vatsim is going to ever implement proper radio behavior? For example, not voice rooms, but real radio leads line of sight. I know you have a problem with too many people on the same frequency. Yeah. The radio simulation of Vatsim is, of course, a hard thing. It's not really that you use voice rooms. You do actually dial a frequency in the radios. I think with a network like Ivao, it's like you join a room in TeamSpeak, but that's not the case with Vatsim. You actually do tune a frequency, but in that way you indirectly also, of course, enter a certain room. And the radio communication is not very quick, because if you press your push to talk button, you do not immediately transmit like in the real world. So that's kind of a hard thing. So maybe Vatsim will ever improve that. I hope they will improve that. I heard about Pilot Edge. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's only limited US coverage. It's limited US coverage, and it's you also have to pay for Pilot Edge at some point. I know you have a free trial period. I haven't tried it yet. But if maybe Vatsim can learn from Pilot Edge. If their technology is better for simulating radios, that would be perfect, because now radio transmissions are actually not as good and not as fast as real world radios, right? So there's some delay, and the sound quality itself is not very good, especially when there's someone with a very bad microphone. It's very hard to understand. So that's why it's important to have good microphone to contribute to a better voice quality on Vatsim. And also, I could recommend to buy a good headset, because in that way you can just put the ATC sound through your headset and all the other sounds through your speakers, so you can kind of adjust for the volume, and you hear the air traffic control, and other part is directly in your ears. So those are a few tips to improve the quality of sound on Vatsim. But I hope Vatsim indeed will kind of work on a better system for the radios. Okay. There we go. Tom Slots, how do you set up a computer? Do you have the FSX? I don't have I have FSX, but I don't use it. And all the add-ons on the separate HD now. On my own computer with FS2004, I have everything on the same hard drive. So yeah, that's just convenient in this case. For FS2004, you don't really need. I mean, the textures are not that heavy that I really need a separate hard drive for that. But it's recommended to, if you install FSX or Prepar2D, to actually install it on a separate hard drive, and preferably a solid state drive. I mean, those things are really, really quick. And I mean, the files that Prepar2D and FSX needs to load are very, very big. So I definitely recommend to get it on a solid state drive, and because it loads the textures much quicker. And then, for example, you can put Windows on a hard drive and all the FSX files on a solid state drive, for example. But for me personally, I have everything on the same hard drive. and for me that works fine because FS2004 is typically not that heavy, and that's why I have a lot of frame rates too. I mean, that's a major advantage. All right. Okay. Sniper, how many flight hours do you have at all? Well, I'm not sure really. Maybe around 250. Well, I really have no idea. I wish I could check VetAware, because VetAware, of course, is a statistics website. But unfortunately, they've lost all the data at some point. But the data is still there somewhere, and I hope they're gonna restore it, so I can really check my flight hours, or I have to log into the stats center. But I don't really know by heart. But I've made many flights because I've been on Vatsim around for 7 years, so that's quite a long time. So you can kind of guess that I've made a lot of flights already. So yeah, that's all I can say. I cannot give you a definite number, but I will get back to that when I have more information. All right, Fly Sam. Yeah, good evening from Finland. Good to have you here in the chat room. And what is the longest route you had flown? In Flight Simulator on Vatsim specifically, the longest route was from Amsterdam to Newark. I did 2 Atlantic crossings on Vatsim. One was during the day and one was during the night. So that's the longest route as well. Amsterdam to New York. It's about 7 hours, so it's not extremely long. But I don't really like those long flights. It was just, this Atlantic crossing was just an experiment. I was very young at the time, and I don't think I would really do it that quickly. I mean, I really actually made a flight during the night, so when I was supposed to sleep. So that was quite an adventure, but it was fun to try out sometime. But maybe I will do more Atlantic crossings in the future, but we'll see. But that's the longest route I've flown. My opinion on vPilot and the best headset to get. I haven't tried vPilot myself personally, but I think it's good that this new development is taking place. And the best headsets, well, I like Logitech headsets. That's one of my, the one that I'm using here is a very simple Logitech headset. I mean, it doesn't need to be a very expensive headset, but it shouldn't be too cheap either, you know? So like this headset, for example, you have just your microphone next to your mouth, not really on your mouth like this, but next to you. So you don't talk directly into the microphone. And yeah, the sound quality is pretty good for this. Of course, the microphone I'm recording with now is just like really a microphone for voiceovers and things like that. So I don't actually use it, but kind of a Logitech headset for $25 or more. I mean that's already enough, I think. So I can't really give a specific brand or anything. Okay, Totoritko, he says, okay, the sound quality of Vatsim is actually much more realistic than Pilot Edge. Wait, too clear? Oh, okay, that's one thing indeed. If it's too clear, it becomes kind of like TeamSpeak, right? Like if you're directly talking to a person or something like Skype, because Vatsim actually has, or Squawkbox in particular has VHF simulation, so it kind of sounds like a VHF frequency. But Vatsim systems make it impossible for a single controller to service multiple frequencies, and so often you end up with a CTR controller providing clearance and ground in the whole damn country. Well, that's one thing, of course, but that's not really due to the voice rooms or anything. That's simply because of the availability of air traffic control. Sometimes it's simply not possible to have controllers all over Europe from delivery to radar. That's just impossible. It depends on who is available online. Sometimes you have evenings where only a radar controller is online, and sometimes you have evenings where every station is online, and then it's of course realistic. But at least when there's a center controller online, you get at least air traffic control from cruise level to a touchdown. So that's Of course, it might not be realistic in the sense that you don't contact different stations and that you stay on the same frequency all the time, but it's simply impossible to provide air traffic control um, with so many. Yeah, it's impossible to get so many air traffic controllers to get all those people. So, yeah. Um, in that case, we need thousands of air traffic controllers who are online all the time to provide air traffic control from top to bottom. That's simply not going to work. So, of course, it's not realistic to call CTR indeed when you're on the ground, but at least it's better than nothing. I mean, it would be kind of boring if you really had to wait for air traffic controller when you're on cruise level. So um, it's not entirely realistic. But one thing you can do is just make sure you fly on a busy evening with a lot of air traffic controllers, or fly at events, because at events they do make sure that there's air traffic control from delivery from delivery to ground to tower to approach to radar. So that's kind of the thing that you can do. I'm not sure how Pilot Edge do this, because I'm not sure if they have thousands of air traffic controllers who do actually provide all the stations. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. All right. Yeah, I know stats.vatsim.net, but I need some time to answer all these questions, so I'm not gonna log in now. Okay. Okay, that's good. Yeah. So Quilinho agrees with me that it's better to have some ATC than not at all. I think it's the same thing. Even though radio-wise it's not realistic, but procedure-wise, you actually, he gives you the clearance, he gives you the taxi clearance, things like that. So, I mean, the phraseology is the same, and in that case, yeah, of course, it's a shame that a radar controller has to give you those instructions, but that's just the way it is, and it's at least something, because otherwise this would be way too boring, and it would be too boring for the radar controller as well. Although it can also be too busy for the radar controller at some point, but at that point he probably needs to call someone to provide ATC for tower, for example. Okay, so we got about 10 minutes left. It's going pretty quickly. Thanks for all the questions, by the way, so far. If you have any questions still, yeah, please post them. When is your next video coming out? I'm not sure. I think about 3 weeks, because I have some exams coming up. Well, maybe next week, a little short video, but I'm not sure. But don't expect a very big video very soon, because I really have to spend time studying and making sure that those exams go well. I'm currently doing statistics course, so that's quite hard, of course, and so I really need to spend time for that instead of flight simming and making videos, unfortunately. But after that, I have holiday, and so I have some more time to make videos and to spend time working on the website. All right, Anonymous6426, I'm a radio amateur and Squawk Box is not realistic at all. Well, yeah, of course, realistic. It's a VHF simulation. They try to do their best to, add an effect, so at least the too good quality of the TeamSpeak like radio transmissions gets decreased a little. But in reality, I've flown in real life as well. VHF is pretty clear. If you listen to liveatc.net, for example, if it's a good receiver, then it's pretty good as well. But it indeed sounds a lot different in the real world. Transmitting on the radio, hearing the air traffic controller, it's actually pretty clearer than the audio that you get on Vatsim. All right, so Dr. Ritko argues that it's physically impossible to talk VHF beyond your horizon. Yeah, of course, that's true. It's radio-wise, it's not realistic. I agree with that, but yeah, that's just the way it works on Vatsim. I think Vatsim is more about the procedures and about the flying and air traffic controlling itself, rather than the radio technology behind it. Of course, it would be great if we could actually really simulate that properly, but I think that would require a lot of investments from Vatsim itself. And The best thing is to do it in the real world. And if you're a radio amateur, that's very cool as well. I mean, if you have a radio transceiver, it's great to get in touch with people. I've experimented with that myself as well with a radio transceiver. You might remember that I've had a video of the ATIS of Prague Airport, for example. I mean, that's where when I really, yeah, kind of had a feeling of what the VHF radio sounds like, and what it is like to be a radio amateur. It's pretty cool, and that's an entirely different hobby, of course, but very interesting and kind of related to aviation. And but you do actually need a license to transmit on the frequency in the amateur radio world. But it's a very interesting hobby, and there's a lot of technology behind it, of course, and you need to acquire a lot of knowledge of radios, VHF, all those things for that. But yeah, on Vatsim, it's just not going to work that way. And again, Vatsim is more about the procedures, about the flying, about the air traffic controlling, rather than the technology behind the radios and the laws of physics behind the radios. Okay. All right. So we are nearing an end of this live stream. If you have any pressing questions, there's still time to enter them here in the chat box. So yeah, as you know, I've released a couple of videos lately, the Virtual CDU app review. I've been using that app right now for a real flight last Friday. I'm going to use it again tomorrow. And it works pretty well. It's very nice to use your hand to actually program your FMC like that. And then when I'm done with programming the FMC, I actually use the iPad for my charts. So I kind of have to switch between those. But it works pretty well, and I really like that app. So there's a review on my website here as well. If you go to my website, AviationPro.nl, and then go to Flight Simulator and then to Reviews, and there you can click on Virtual CDU 737. So there's a review right there, and there's also an installation video to show you how to install and configure this add-on using the iFly 737 on FS 2004 and also using the iPad. And the app is available for Android and for Apple devices, and it works with the iFly and PMTG 737. And they've also released a couple of other FMCs for the iFly 747, for example, and the PMDG 777. So they've got some interesting products, although it's a bit expensive, but when you watch the video, you will hear more about that, of course. And then, of course, the 10 essential tips. I've already mentioned that video. And so if you're a new Vatsim pilot, there were a couple of people in the chat room who were new to Vatsim, then I definitely can recommend to watch that video. So that's what I wanted to talk about, really. So we're nearing an end. There are no more questions coming in. If there are any questions coming in right now, I'd probably answer them using the chat box itself. And otherwise, maybe very quickly if it's a short question, but then you have to hurry up because I'm going to be closing down in a few minutes. So yeah, my current schedule is studying. After that, I will be working on a website, adding a lot of content and making some videos as well for the website itself as for the channel. Of course, all the videos that I will make will actually be available on the channel. And yeah, so in the background, so that's what I'm planning to do after my exams. I'm planning to add a lot of content. And then in the meantime, I'm also working on a new version of the website, which will be quite completely different from what you see now. I mean, this is still a very basic website to just test everything, to get used to building websites using WordPress. But I really like it to do it so far, and I hope to create something really big and new to kind of create a nice community for people to go to where they can learn more about Vatsim, about aviation, things like that. So, all right. So I've got 1 minute left. I'm going to close down now. I would like to thank you for watching this live stream. Thanks for all the people who joined the chat room. There were about 15 people at some point, so that's pretty good. for an event that I only planned yesterday evening. So stay tuned, as always, on the channel by subscribing to AviationPro on YouTube. And of course, make sure you like my Facebook page and follow me on Twitter if you want to get the latest updates about videos that I will release or about updates on the website. So I'm going to close the Hangout right now. From what I know, it has been working pretty well. Oh, one more question. Could you please, on your website, inform your add-ons and how you configured your PC? Well, I actually have a page about my add-ons. You can go to Flight Simulator and then my system, and also my add-ons. So that's where you can see how I buy my add-ons, and also what kind of specifications what the specifications are of my computer. Okay, so I'm gonna close the Hangout now. Thanks for watching again, and I hope to see you next time on a new video. So we're gonna stop the broadcast. See ya.